jig head minnow setup. The setup is very important to success with throwing any type of minnow style bait on a jig head and catching bass. Whether you're using forward facing sonar or not, setup is very important on catching those fish, either the ones that you can see or the ones you can't see. So let's get right into it. I'm gonna show you what I use. This is exactly from my boat from this past year. My setup over the last couple years has evolved. The more I've learned, the more I've experienced with this type setup, with that jig head and that minnow style bait. It's really evolved, and really it's from a comprehension of what you're trying to do. And so let's go ahead and just talk about the basic comprehension of what you're trying to do. You're trying to get this bait to the fish as quickly as possible, and then you want to float that bait right over top of their head, and that's when the magic happens. That's the whole key. So it starts with the rod. You need to have a rod with the right type of taper. I think anywhere from like a 6'10" to a 7'4", somewhere in that range, anywhere in that 7-foot range, even 6'6" if you need to, because it's not going to be hard to make a long cast. And then having that rod that's short enough to where you can put that action from your hand across the line to make that minnow roll like you want to, like we're talking about suspending it, just kind of making it hover right above that bass's heads, or the group of bass, hopefully. And you want to make that bait roll. That's where the rod length. If you have too long of a rod, I think a 7'4" is about the length of being too long, because sometimes when you're using forward-facing sonar, you're trying to make really, really long casts. You might see a fish out there at 100 feet. You've got to make a really long cast, potentially with a lighter jig head. Longer rod can be beneficial. So there is a game to play there with the rod length, but I think what you're looking for is a medium power with a faster tip. So a rod that's not too stiff, but yet has a faster taper. Faster taper means just the rod tip is going to bend. Medium, it means the power of the rod is not too heavy. It's just medium, fast is probably the range you want to be in. A good spinning reel, I like a bigger spooled spinning reel. I like the 3000 size. I think that's what works for me. As you can see, this is a 3000, this is a 7 GF model, and it's got that bigger spool on it. I think that helps with casting distance. And we're not going to be using super light line. That is one of the other myths about the jig head minnow fishing. You're not using super light line. You're using heavier braid and heavier monofilament, or fluorocarbon on that leader. This is 18-pound Sunline All Might braid, pretty heavy braid. You can use anything from, I'd say, 15 to 20-pound braid is good on that, because you're going to be able to keep that bait hovering. And then on the leader, let's take a look at the length of the leader. I'm going to use anywhere from about a 2 foot. This is about a probably 2.5 foot leader right here that I've got. You can see it's there's my knot right there. I've got about a 2 to 2.5 foot leader. I've used as short as a 1 foot leader. Shorter leaders are much better for the minnow game. I feel like for a couple reasons. It gives you more control on making that bait roll. Gives you a little bit more, so when you put that slack in the line and you're shaking it along, it's making that minnow roll much easier. When you're using braid for the majority of it, you're not having that resistance of the fluorocarbon. That makes a big difference. And then the fluorocarbon, 12 is really the lightest I go on this leader. Most of the time I'm going to be throwing 14 or 16. Some guys throw up to 20-pound leader, because again, you're trying to make that bait kind of hover above those fish. So the bigger line actually helps the bait hover. You know, as you're rolling, you want that bait to kind of hover above the fish. So you want to get the bait down to the fish as quickly as possible. But then as soon as you get that bait just above them, you want to make that thing kind of hover and roll right above them. That's when the magic happens. But then as we get down to the bait itself, this is the Missile Baits Freedom Flyer 4.25. And then this is the Roll Jighead that has the welded ring on it. That welded ring really helps the bait roll. The Freedom Flyer has the up pitch elevators on the back, which it is the easiest minnow to roll, period. No matter what minnow you put on there, whether it's a jerk shad or a fluke or wing fluke or Sakamata shad, whatever it is, that eye roll with that welded ring helps that bait roll and bring it to life real easy. So you don't have to be a magician. You don't have to fish this technique for years to be able to figure it out. The welded ring makes it much easier to get that thing to roll. And that's one of the triggers of making that bait roll above the fish that gets them to bite it. And then the Freedom Flyer, you can use anywhere from a 1/0, 2/0, or even a 3/0. This is a 3/0, the hook in there. And as you can see, the body's big enough, but it's not too big. So anywhere in that 1 to 3/0 range for the hook really is what you want to be. But that's the setup right there. That is it. Typically my go-to is probably a 1/8 ounce. 3/16 if I need to get it a little deeper, quicker. And then in the wintertime, when those fish get even a little deeper, or in the summertime, they'll go real deep as well, I'll bump up to maybe a 1/4 ounce, sometimes a 3/8, but usually it's a 1/4 ounce, get that bait down there quick. And with that welded ring, you can still get that roll that you want for that action. But that's kind of the scenario. And that's my setup for forward facing sonar. The other piece is I really like two-tone colored baits for rolling that minnow. This Arkansas Shiner, you can see it's got the kind of that pearl belly and then that green top, so you get that two-color flash. I also like baits with some glitter in the bottom. This is Silver Shiner. It's got that smoke top and the glitter in the bottom. So as it rolls, it just gives that presence of like, scales coming off of a minnow, something like that. That is really good. And then, this is spot remover. As it rolls, you can see that chartreuse and the bottom with that clear and some of that flake in the bottom, just kind of giving it a different look as it's rolling. I think those really are triggers for those fish as they're rolling. Sometimes those fish will be higher in the water column, might only be 5 feet under the surface. Sometimes they'll be 15, sometimes they'll be 45. So you just got to figure out what depth those fish are. You can do that without forward-facing sonar. Sometimes it takes a little more guess and check, but you do that. You have the system in a similar setup to what I've got here. You will go out there and you will catch more fish using that jig head minnow.